According to the National Institute of Health, National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive Kidney Disease, approximately 27.5% of American women are overweight and struggle with making good nutritional choices. Furthermore, according to Georgetown University, nearly 40% of American women 51 or older are obese or overweight. Obesity, of course, is considered a risk factor for many chronic diseases, especially in older men and women. Older men and women, according to the university, have nearly identical obesity rates, 23% for men and 24% for women. Lisa Salisbury is the host of the Eat Well, Think Well, and Live Well podcast for women who want to stop obsessing about everything they eat and feel confident in their ability to lose weight. Salisbury holds a bachelor's degree in health and human performance from Brigham Young University. She's a certified life and weight loss coach. She's also a certified health coach from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She specializes in helping women lose weight by ending their dependence on fad diets. Salisbury says that we don't have to be members of the Clean Our Plate Club every time we finish a meal. She says it's important to listen to our bodies and take into account the nutritional value of portion sizes and also being keenly aware of how much food is too much to consume when we sit down to eat. Salisbury will make it easy to understand for any woman who is struggling with their weight, nutrition, and how they can best get on the other side of that curve. So, without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Lisa, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. I'm super delighted to be with you to learn all about your journey in health and fitness. Great to be with you this afternoon, and thank you for spending a few minutes with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lisa, if you wouldn't mind by starting our conversation by just giving me sort of a 360-degree view on why fitness is such a priority for you and a little bit about the good work that you do.
Yeah, sure. So I am a life coach for health and weight loss. I primarily focus on women who need to kind of give up that whole diet mentality, get out of the diet industry culture, but yet they're like, I still would like to move a little bit better. I'd still like to function a little bit better. And I think what's going to help with that is some weight loss. So we want to lose some weight, but we don't want to have to track our calories and be obsessed with, weighing our food and keeping track of macros plus or minus 5 grams every day. All that kind of thing can make you crazy. At least it made me crazy. And that's really how I came to this work is just the years and years, really decades of dieting. I started dieting when I was very young, still in high school, and just went on during my childbearing and nursing years, that breastfeeding years, I wasn't a nurse, but anyway, sometimes that gets confusing. But anyway, with having babies and breastfeeding, it was just a roller coaster of my weight and really did a number on my mental health with regards to my body image. So I just spent a lot of time dieting and finally came to the realization and the understanding through coaching that my body was already good, that I already had a beautiful body, and that I did not need to calculate my food and weigh and measure and bring my food scale to the dinner table with my children. I could actually depend on my body to help me decide what to eat rather than depending on a diet app. So that's what I teach my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about thought patterns, right? And helping them get through their health and wellness journey. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me about that and how it relates to your teaching and the brain, if you would be so kind to tell me how that all is interconnected.
Yeah, the thought patterns and the parts of our brain make really just are the missing piece to every diet that most women have ever been on, and men. I have had a couple of male clients as well, because we're given these diet plans, a meal list or recipes to follow, and no one ever tells you in that diet plan what to do when you don't feel like eating that thing that's on the list. And what this comes from is the two parts of your brain. Well, there's lots of parts of your brain, but for this sort of high level type overview, we're going to consider your upper brain, which is like your human thinking brain, and then your lower brain, which is like that habit. Some people call it the lizard brain. I like to call it the toddler brain because it just wants what it wants right now without regards to the future. So we have these two parts of our brain, and that lower brain is often the one we leave in charge of making our food decisions. And that part of our brain just wants to get as much dopamine as possible. So when you're given a choice between two food items, whatever is going to give you the most dopamine is what that lower brain is going to encourage you to go for. It's also just going to encourage you to do what you've always done because it's the habit brain and it doesn't like change. So when we start making decisions with our upper brain, that means we're making some decisions ahead of time and we're doing some planning, because the lower brain does not have the ability to do that. It doesn't have the ability to think through what's going to happen in a couple hours or in a couple days or in a couple of years. So we want to use that upper brain to make our health and nutrition decisions. So for example, we're going to create a list of things that we want to eat on purpose ahead of time. We're going to say, these are the breakfasts I'm going to choose from. This is what I'm going to have for lunch today. This is what I'm going to have for dinner today. And then when it's time to make dinner, the challenge then just is to make that. And that's really where I work with my clients, is to follow through and to be committed to what our upper brain has decided. And so we start listening to that upper brain more and more and more. And we start just silencing the lower brain with regards to our health and nutrition decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I also know that you work with your clients on the concept of portion sizes, really understanding that just because you leave food on your plate doesn't necessarily mean you always have to clean your plate as well. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about it.
Yeah, the cleaning our plate has actually done a lot of damage to our societies in general, really, because we have this idea that we need to be in the Clean Plate Club, which is crazy because the Clean Plate Club was actually started as part of a government program, first in World War I and then rejuvenated in World War II, which means that for many of us adults in the adult age range right now, either our grandparents or our parents or both were actually part of Clean Plate Clubs in their elementary schools. And they were started to protect and conserve resources for the sort of Well, for the war efforts, I've lost the word there that they are the rations for the war efforts, because, we did really need things to send overseas. And so the idea was, if you take just what you need for your body and then you clean your plate, that's a sign that you haven't taken more than basically your share. Well, this has come to bite us in the butt, because now we think we need to clean our plate, but we have this portion distortion going on. So a bagel, for example, in the 1980s was about 3 inches across. Today, it's about 6 inches across. So we think a bagel is a portion. I love bagels, nothing wrong with them. But we have to decide, okay, if I think I need to clean my plate, but I'm also served a 6-inch bagel, like, what do I do? Because what we're getting is far more than a serving size, because serving sizes really are different than portions. So when you go and you order like the large fry, for example, you're going to look at that. That's the portion you're served. But if you looked at that restaurant's nutritional information, it's likely going to be 2 or 3 servings. And so we've just constantly increased the portions, or the amount that we're served. And yet we haven't gotten rid of this idea that we have to also clean our plates. So we really have to, again, get back to the brain work of depending on our bodies to decide how much we want to eat, so that we aren't just eating what we're being given.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa, I'm also curious to ask you about the concept and the importance of listening to our bodies when it comes to our nutritional choices and how much food we consume. So how important is it to listen to our bodies?
I think it's really the key, really, for my clients. It's the key to dropping the obsession with having to follow someone else's food plan, with needing to check in with a diet app to see if you have quote unquote calories or macros left for the day, what you can eat. How many times in my dieting years did I say, well, let me open up my app to see what I can eat, instead of asking my body, like, what do I need right now? Do I need food? Am I hungry? Have I had enough water today? Instead, I just depended on technology to tell me. And when we listen to our bodies to determine the amount that we want to eat, we want to use what I use with my clients is a hunger scale. So can I go through that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I take them through a hunger scale, which goes from -10 through 0 to +10. So -10 is extremely hungry. This is like haven't eaten for several hours, maybe even all day. Maybe you fasted all day for a medical test. You're weak with hunger. You feel tired, lethargic, lots of physical symptoms. This is not when we like go to get lunch and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm starving. That's not a -10 hunger, right? If we've had breakfast and it's just been a couple hours and we have low blood sugar, that's not the same as being -10 hunger. It's very uncomfortable. 0 is neutral. This is when we're neither hungry nor full, and we want to spend the most of our day in this space. +10 is very uncomfortable as well. This is so full. We got to lay down in a dark room. We got to unbutton our pants. We don't want to talk to anyone. We often have glorification of overeating with, food porn and food coma, that sort of thing. But it is very uncomfortable to be at a +10 hunger, or +10 fullness as well. So when we think about that, then of course, all the numbers along the way, -1, -2, -3, we're getting hungry. And then we start eating. So I encourage my clients to eat between the 3s. So we start eating at a -3. We want to feel the symptoms of hunger. We want to feel a lightness, an emptiness, a readiness to bring food on board. And then we want to sit and pay attention to our food, take bites, chew them thoroughly, have some focus on what you're eating, and eat then to a +3 on your hunger scale. And when we do this, we're going to start practicing just really, really listening to your body for the amount you're going to eat. And you will find that you're going to have to experiment. You're going to think, oh, this is a +3, but then you don't get hungry again at that -3 point for 4, 5, 6 hours. You were more than a +3. So you got to play around with it. and eat a little more, eat a little less, then eat a little less, then eat a little more. It's really trial and error until you start to realize, okay, I think I know what a +3 feels like. And then it just becomes so easy then to maintain your weight without having to bother with weighing and measuring and calculating your food.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa, I'm curious to ask you, what does it mean to you to optimize your health, and how do you think it's interconnected to our nutritional choices?
Yeah, when you're really focusing on your health and not your weight, you really can make choices in your nutrition that benefit that. So, for example, when you're looking at your overall quality of life, you want to decide, does my overall quality of life, do I want to include sugar, for example? Do I want to include flour? Do I want to include bread? My answer is yes to all of that. I want to be a person that eats those things because that affects my overall quality of life. I want to be able to have birthday cake and to have, a quote unquote treat now and again, a sweet item. I want to be able to eat those without drama. And so what I do is it works on, an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time I'm eating whole foods, single ingredient, made from scratch or otherwise non-processed type foods. And by non-processed, I don't mean, obviously, if you want to buy pre-chopped things or convenience things, I use a lot of canned beans, canned tomatoes. I don't consider those processed in the way they're not that ultra processed with all of the chemicals, but they're single ingredient type foods still. So all of that kind of thing are going to be great for you. And then, 20% is what's part of your quality of life. Those are your pleasure foods. Those are things that you enjoy eating and add to the experience of eating. So if we just function on an 80-20 rule, you really can optimize your health. And I would encourage you to especially prioritize protein. I'm not sure what the demographics of are your listeners. If most people are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, women especially need to prioritize protein so that we do not lose our muscle mass going into menopause years and into our older years. We want to maintain that muscle mass. So you especially want to prioritize protein in that time of your life. And without the need to weigh and measure it, you can just have a serving of protein at each meal.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa, March is Women's History Month, so I'm curious about your thoughts on observing the month and how important you think acknowledging the contributions of women actually is.
Well, being a woman, I do love it. I love having a month to really think through that and to be part of it. I have 2 daughters as well, and I speak highly of women to them. I always celebrate women. I'm a big fan of equality. And I actually was speaking to a woman in my family about equality, and she misunderstood and said, "Oh, so do you just think that the women should be in charge and the men should be subservient?" And I'm like, no. I just think we should both be in charge. And I think that's where it comes down to for me with Women's History Month, is to recognize the contributions that women have made in all areas, and especially some that aren't as well recognized, like in the STEM areas and science, technology, math, those kinds of places, and to emphasize just the equality that we not just need but deserve. That we don't need to be in charge, but we also maybe should be equally in charge as men are.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I'm also curious to ask you about access to quality food and making quality food choices. Depending on your demographic, I always say that access to opportunity, people are equally talented, but access to opportunities isn't afforded to everyone. So, when we talk about access to quality food, how can we make sure that people in lower income and marginalized communities get access to quality food choices as well?
Well, if I were in charge, I think where we're really lacking is in the school system cafeterias. I think that the big food companies have really taken over there, and I think it's really disappointing the amount of processed food that the children are being offered there. Because of that, kids, I think that they should only have to eat things that are they don't use these words, but they're only eating things that are ultra processed. It's different than processed foods, like I mentioned earlier, like canned beans or canned tomatoes. That's a processed food. It's totally fine. It's a single ingredient. But when kids are eating ultra processed food, things like Lunchables or pizza rolls or Uncrustable type sandwiches, those kinds of things that are ultra processed and have very little nutrition and very far from a single ingredient whole food type choice, they get confused about what food is and what they should be eating and what they deserve to eat. I think that lack of quality really affects those kids and their choices later on. The other problem with lack of access to quality food choices is areas in the country where we have food deserts, where grocery stores aren't available. And there's a lot of government issues here. I think the last government issue that is quite an issue is the subsidization of non-nutritional choices. So why aren't we subsidizing fruits and vegetables? Why are we subsidizing processed foods like that we are getting in the school cafeteria system? I think that's really an issue. So honestly, I don't know what the solution is to this other than to change the lobbying and get some subsidy. I don't know how to say that word.
Subsidization. I'll do it for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, there you go. To the whole foods, the fruits and vegetables that kids really need to be introduced to early on, as well as being available to those that aren't able to purchase those things. And I would say lastly, when we are providing those kinds of things with, say, WIC programs, they need to come with, I know this may sound strange, but they need to come with instructions. Like, everyone doesn't know what to do with whole foods. It's confusing. Everyone doesn't know how to cook. And so that's why they opt for the highly processed food choices that are ready to go. And so I think we need to do more education. We can't just give lower income folks the food and then say, good luck to you. If they don't know how to cook, they've got to be given some education there as well.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Lisa, I remember, and I had Lunchables as a kid, and I couldn't stand them. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, building on your last answer, how do you think we establish healthcare equity when it comes to nutritional choices?
Wow, that is a really big question. I think definitely the education on, what we need to be eating. It's a tough one. That's a tough one. There's a difference certainly between equality and equity. Equity means we need to give those that are starting out lower a bigger boost. So we don't need to be giving everybody the same exact thing, but we need to be giving those that need more help, the more help that they need to bring them up to where the folks that are starting ahead, where they are. Definitely just providing education. Honestly, I was actually just talking to my husband about this. I think health coaching in general needs to be part of our healthcare system. I did mention in the beginning, I'm a life coach for health and weight loss, but I'm also a certified health coach. And I think health coaching is really one of the missing pieces in healthcare, because lots of people know that they should be exercising and that they should be improving their nutrition, and they don't know where to start, or they just are having trouble with the getting going and the staying committed. And that's really where health coaching comes in. So I do think that getting some health coaching into our healthcare system and making it more of a wellness care rather than a sick care system could also be a means of providing more equity.
Yeah, absolutely. And just following up on that, do you think America has an obesity problem that they're ignoring? How do you think we can attack obesity on a larger scale?
I definitely think America has an obesity problem. And sometimes it's not a popular opinion because people say, well, you can be healthy at any size. And that's true. And I don't take my clients down to a weight that would be considered what I always call a stage weight, meaning, I'm not taking my clients to being fitness models. I'm taking my clients from being uncomfortable in clothing to comfortable in clothing. I'm taking them from being not I had a client say, I just can get up off the floor now. And that's such a relief. And so when we're talking about folks that are obese, we're talking about functional problems. And then sometimes that does relate into metabolic problems as well. Their blood work is not always where they want it to be. So as far as addressing the obesity epidemic, I think that number one, we need to go back to those quality food choices and more education. I think we need to start early with younger kids and really just providing them with better quality choices. And lastly, I think it is up to that individual, and folks need to take a little more control of their own health and be an advocate for themselves. I think a lot of people feel like it's their doctor's job to take care of them. But when we shift that responsibility onto ourselves and really know that you're the one that has control over what's happening for your health and body, that we need to really shift that responsibility.
It does make a big difference. And I have to ask you about creating a roadmap for creating good nutritional habits. So if someone gave you, say, $1 million to produce a commercial on good nutritional habits, how would you start the roadmap and the commercial?
I would definitely, I'm a big fan of, like I said earlier, protein. I think that human beings were created as omnivores. And so I encourage animal protein. I think that our diet needs to be based on protein and produce. So we need to increase the amount of protein and produce versus the amount of starchy carbs. So I think it's where the food pyramid really went wrong, is to base it on starchy carbs as the base. So that's where I would start with the commercial, is to emphasize how delicious fruits and vegetables are and how muscle building animal proteins are, and how we want to balance that out with our starchy carbs. Definitely not an advocate of cutting out carbs. I just don't think it's the base of the pyramid. So we want to add those in. We want to definitely focus on some complex carbohydrates, some great for you stuff like potatoes, sweet potatoes, oatmeal, quinoa, all those great grains that we don't see as often as we do wheat. I still make a lot of bread myself, so I eat a lot of bread as well, but I balance that. So I would say I would put that more in balance with protein, produce, and carbohydrates rather than a triangle where carbohydrates and starchy carbs are the base. I think that is where we want to get out of that triangle version and into a more balanced approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa, I know that you're also a podcast host yourself, so tell me about the podcast you're on and what the message behind it is.
Okay, sure. My podcast is called Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well. And it's really the podcast for women who want to stop obsessing about everything they eat and just feel confident in their ability to lose weight without a diet app. So my mission is to just help women feel that empowered, and each each episode focuses on one, sometimes two of those pillars. So we're either talking about eating well, so it's specifically about nutrition or how to make nutrition choices, how to plan your meals. We talk about thinking well, so that's the mindset pattern around weight loss. So we get into, I've talked about the Clean Plate Club, I've talked about wasting food and the kinds of things that get in the way, emotional eating. And then we also talk about living well. So that's all the lifestyle parts that go into our health. So getting enough sleep, our hormone levels, stress, exercise, all goes into that live well pillar. So those are the three pillars that I focus on. And I'm on any podcast platform. You can find me by searching for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And since you brought it up, you sparked me to ask you this question. When we talk about wasting food or feeling guilty about emotional eating, how do you think those two things are interconnected, and how can we shift our mindsets away from that?
Yeah, so wasting food is such an interesting topic because we have a big aversion to it. Most of my clients just tell me they hate wasting food. And I always ask them then, so which is better? Should we waste the food in the garbage, a few cents worth of, 3 or 4 bites on your plate? Or should we waste the time, effort, and energy that it takes to get it off your body? So we're either wasting it in the garbage or we're wasting it on our body. Either way, what happens to food? It comes out as waste, right? But if we add excess food to our bodies, we have to work to get it off. We have to work to get it out as waste, right? So learning that we don't need to, and this is just part of that cleaning your plate, but learning that wasting food is really not that big of a deal, and can actually lead to weight loss. If you just decide, you know what, I'm going to leave 2 bites behind at every meal. I'm just going to leave 2 bites behind. And it's a really fun, actually, experiment. Put a freezer bag, just a zip top freezer bag, into your freezer. Every meal, take those 2 bites and just add it to the freezer bag. At the end of the week, you pull out that freezer bag and look how much food that you decided you didn't need. It's shocking how much those 2 bites add up over the course of the week. And then the next week, you can serve up 2 bites less at each meal. So as you learn that leaving a few bites behind actually doesn't make you hungry, you can also start saving money by serving up less and not wasting any food on the plate. So it's interesting because learning to waste a little food will actually lead you to saving money in the long run, because you'll stop serving up so much, you'll stop making so much or ordering so much, those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Lisa, my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
That's also another big question. I think I would like to be defined as someone who was outside of the diet industry, who didn't buy into the ideas that were part of that industry, but also helped women become their best selves. I had a client a couple months ago tell me, I'm becoming emotionally stronger, which is actually more important than becoming thinner. And mind you, she had already lost 20 pounds. So she was doing it at the same time. She was becoming emotionally stronger. And that's the kind of professional legacy I'd like to leave behind is multiple hundreds of even thousands of women that are emotionally stronger because they worked with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa, tell me, if people want to get connected with you and the good work that you do, what's the best way they can do that?
So for sure, the podcast, Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well. I'm also on Instagram at well_with_Lisa. You can also search my first and last name, Lisa Salisbury, Salisbury. My website is wellwithlisa.com. And I assume you'll put all those links in the show notes.
You better believe it. And I want to thank you for being here and sharing your expertise and insights on nutrition, health, and wellness. Your work in the space and time on my behalf this afternoon. It's most appreciated, and I want to thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been delightful to speak with you.